Good morning and welcome to our 175th weekly webcast. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way this call works is this is a 2-hour AMA, which means ask me anything. You can ask me business questions, personal questions, career questions, etc. And within a couple hours of the call being done, what my wonderful team does is they upload all the questions asked directly to YouTube. So you can go in the clickable field in YouTube, right in the description field, and you can click and get immediate access to the answers to all questions. Now, I've got a new setup here. This was wonderfully 3D printed by another company, not by me. I just bought a 3D printer, so I'm going to start doing 3D prints on the back, which should be a lot of fun. So let me actually show it to you a little bit closer here. So if we zoom into it, we see here we go. We see it's just 3D letters that are stuck on the wall. Now this here is like a bed sheet for a bed. It's white, and that way it attracts colors better when I splash on two different colors. So I've got blue and green here, which are my corporate colors, as many of you know. So without further ado, let's begin. And thank you as always. I threw in a second camera here. Remember in the old days I used to have 4 or 5 cameras. I'm going to go back to that style soon, I think, because it's so much more fun that way. All right, let me get to your questions. All right, as Matthew McConaughey says. First up, I have got here, Andre, how are you? Greetings from Dallas, Texas. Hope all is well with everyone. Great to see you. We have a lot of students actually from Dallas and Houston in the MBA program, including yourself. And then you wrote here, yesterday the U.S. president signed an executive order establishing research of a digital currency operated by the U.S. Central Bank. What are the pros and cons of governments like the EU and China and the U.S. Central banks getting involved in cryptos? What are your general thoughts? Yeah. So the question is, what is the role going to be of major economies adopting their own cryptocurrency? So it all depends on where you lie on the political spectrum. So if you're more communist or more left-wing, like China certainly is, then you're going to control distribution of that crypto, and you're also going to be able to analyze who buys what and when, right? It's the best way to track citizens. It's unfortunate. And in China, they already have cameras set up that can recognize 200 million people's faces. Yeah, so it's another way to kind of keep tabs on consumers. In more right-wing based countries or capitalist countries like the United States, I think it's kind of a defense mechanism for them just in case, as a hedge, in case the US dollar is no longer relevant in the long run. It's a hedge. Now, I don't think the United States government is going to rush in and replace the greenback, the traditional fiat-based paper currency they've had forever. I don't think they're going to be doing that in the near term. I just think it's a hedge, and for strategic reasons, they have to look into it, because with all countries, the biggest threat to national security might be cryptocurrencies in the long run. For example, in Russia, what Putin did because of the war was he doubled interest rates from 9.5% to 20% a couple of weeks ago. And he did that to control the currency. Now, if you assume that all Russians, and this is a very extreme, but if you assume that all Russians decide not to use the ruble anymore, and they just want to use cryptocurrencies, then Putin can't finance this war. He can't finance growth at all, and he becomes solely reliant on China. Okay, and that's why a lot of communist countries have even made cryptocurrencies illegal, like Russia. And in the United States and in most major economies, the way it works is if you want to fund a war or build infrastructure, build bridges, walls, etc., you don't make enough money from taxes to do it. And so what you have to do is you have to change your interest rate in order to finance stuff. Now, I'll explain how it works. So let's go back to World War II. It's 1945 right now, and the United States has no idea when this war is going to end. And the United States needs money to be able to build tanks, planes, etc. So what they do is they sell you a war bond. Okay, anybody can buy it, consumers, banks, etc. So you buy this bond. I'm the U.S. government. You buy this bond from the U.S. government. Okay, in return, you give me your cash. I use some of the cash to build tanks, warplanes, etc., or infrastructure projects, and some of the cash I take out of circulation forever. or for a long time. And when it's taken out of circulation, what happens is, as with any product in the world, be it a converter, a watch, anything, if the supply goes down, the price goes up. And so when the supply of money goes down, when governments issue a bond, then interest rates go up. Now, imagine you took that power away from the Kremlin, from Russia and the United States and all major economies. They wouldn't be able to function because, again, tax revenue is not enough to finance infrastructure projects, war, etc. Okay. 1 second here. Got my big water. Let me know what you guys think of the backdrop and the color and stuff. I try to use my my corporate logos here as well, or my corporate colors, I should say. Matches the bottle almost too. All right, time for some coffee. All right, let's do this. All right, next question I see here is from. Let's see. Abel wrote, "Hello, Chris. I hope all is well. Likewise, great to see you. 3 weeks ago, I emailed you if you can give me a discount to your MBA program, but I still haven't heard anything from your team. Can you check the email again, please? I'm so sorry. We do get flooded with a lot of requests. A lot of them we can't respond to. What we generally do is we generally prioritize email from customer support from students that have actually signed up for courses and whatnot. Okay, tell you what. For you and for anybody on this call, if you want and if you're interested, what I'll do just for today is I'll give you all 25% off my silver MBA degree program. So instead of being $999, it'll be $749. This will only last for 2 days. But if you want, email support@harounventures.com. Again, email support@harounventures.com to get access to the silver version of the MBA degree program. And really quickly, if you want more details on this, I gotta fix that transition, sorry. You can always go to my website, harounventures.com, and you can click here to learn more about the MBA program. And what I've started doing for silver, and you'll notice that this call used to be 3 hours long, it's now 2 hours. What I do now for silver students is at 10 a.m. every single Thursday until 11 a.m. every Thursday, I do something like this with them, but I also do Zoom in case you want me to review your LinkedIn profile or you want me to take a look at a business plan. And I haven't really advertised it, so I don't get that many calls or people on that call. But again, join us at 10 a.m. today if you want. Now, the way it works, if you're enrolled in silver, anybody that purchased my on-demand program, go to the very first lecture in your curriculum, and you'll see the link for today's webcast and every Thursday's webcast. Again, that's 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time, where I do Zoom as well, and mock interview you, do whatever it takes to humbly help you take your career to the next level. Thank you. And I apologize for missing that. Yeah. And then you wrote, I want to get started your MBA program as early as possible so I can take my career to the next level with you. Thank you. Thank you for the emoji. I appreciate that. And again, apologies for overlooking that. We do get a lot of messages. Okay. All right. Next up, Om wrote, if I want to become a data scientist at a hedge fund in the United States and work remotely from Canada, which books and courses do you recommend that I take to understand stock markets and hedge funds in detail? Yeah. So I pride myself on teaching based on my own real life practical experience and not based on theory. So what I recommend is I've got a couple courses actually that will teach you. You'll go from hero to zero, or zero to hero, I should say, and learn all about finance. So what you can do is you can go to my website, and then right here, so go to harouneducation.com or harounventures.com, same thing. Then go here to all courses. And I've got a 30-day money-back guarantee on everything, including my MBA. So what you can do is you click here, and I recommend starting with this one here. Okay, it's called the Complete Financial Analyst course. And it's based on my work experience at Goldman Sachs and in the hedge fund industries and starting hedge funds as well, and also my experience in venture capital. Then I recommend taking this one here, which is a 30-hour course I just published called the Complete Options course, where I teach you more advanced investing. And if you're going to get involved with data science and you're going to work at a hedge fund, if you want to leg up on the competition, I would check out that Complete Options course. Most people in hedge funds don't use options, but the ones that do protect their capital and they make a fortune as well when the markets go down even. Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right, next up, and by the way, I'm starting to teach programming as well. It's coming soon, and so I've got I've got a 3D printer, and I print out a bunch of, I don't know, kind of cool little products that I'm going to teach, so that anybody that's never learned program before, or even if you have, you can learn it again in a more fun and intuitive way. And so right here, pardon me, this is my 3D printer. It's a hack job, but I'm trying. Right here, this is a subroutine, like a submarine sandwich. And so whenever you code, at least when it comes to some of the more basic programming languages, you have a sub procedure, okay? And at the end of the sub procedure, you've got end sub down here. In the middle, you've got variables, formulas, etc. So this is coming out later this year, and I hope you enjoy it. And I pride myself on adding brand new content, tons of it, every year to my MBA program. And if you purchase my MBA program in the past or the future, you'll get all that stuff for free. But I'm going to start teaching business intelligence, data analysis, and programming as well, and eventually Python. And I used to be a coder back in the 90s. And I've coded on the side for decades. I absolutely love it. And I was actually a beta tester for Microsoft back in the 90s and part of their MSDN, Microsoft Developer Network. Okay. All right, next up, Demian wrote, Demian's from, he's actually from Venezuela originally, but he lives in Barcelona, and he's in my Platinum MBA. Great to see you. So Demian wrote, good morning, Chris, and all nice people here. Hope everyone is well. Andre anticipated the question about President Biden's executive order over a crypto. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's just in the preliminary stages. Like they're certainly not going to release it as part of a beta test. They'll test it for at least a decade first. Yeah. Okay, but the United States currency, and some people get upset when I say this, but it is what it is. It's a flight to quality, and the United States is the last government on the planet that will ever go bankrupt. Okay, the last company, so to speak, and that's why in times of crisis, like we're seeing now, not only does the price of gold go up, which is a flight to quality, and I usually buy ticker GLD, but the United States value of the dollar goes up relative to other currencies. It's a flight to quality. So it's just the way the U.S. Constitution was created and the way the system works in the United States. A lot of checks and balances. Good place for business. Okay. Next question is, another career I'm exploring is that of becoming a blockchain engineer by learning Solidity programming language and applying for jobs at Web3 startups. What are your thoughts on the future of blockchain? Yeah, so it's going to be incredibly relevant. Now, the best business models in history are the ones where you own a platform. And when you own the platform, you can charge the cars. So, for example, Apple owns quintessential mobile platform, so does Android. They own the road, and they charge the cars. And these are the best business models I've ever invested in my life. And so when it comes to blockchain, so blockchain with Bitcoin, it's just a digital ledger, right? It kind of replaces the debits and credits, but up in the cloud, repeated a gazillion times. Now, when it comes to blockchain with Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies, it's much more than just a digital ledger. It's basically a platform for everything. And so Ethereum, which is my favorite cryptocurrency platform and has been for years, Ethereum actually has a more sophisticated blockchain than Bitcoin and most other cryptos. It's so sophisticated that a lot of times when you see an ICO or initial coin offering, which is like an IPO for a crypto, a lot of times when you see an ICO, it's actually done on the Ethereum blockchain, the Ethereum platform. The same thing with NFTs. Most NFTs are created on the Ethereum platform as well. And coming out later this year, I've got a course on NFTs that I'm doing with Peyton Kalawahea, who's one of my wonderful MBA students. Yeah. So in the future, I think blockchain is going to be much more than just a ledger. Think of DocuSign for everything. It'll be the basis for contracts, healthcare files as well, if it's secure, etc. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Mohammed wrote, hello, Mr. Chris. Hey, how are you, Mo? how can central banks be involved in cryptocurrency industry, and can central banks make a profit? Yeah, so the role of government is never to make a profit. It's just be able to finance the day-to-day operations of a country. And so in Europe, I think Europe is going to be one of the last places to adopt a crypto. In Europe, you've got the European Central Bank, which represents most countries in Europe. United States, you got the Federal Reserve. In Canada, you have the Bank of Canada. Japan, the MOF, the Minister of Finance. And in most countries, it's the Bank of X. So X is the country X represents the country where. I'm having issues this morning, guys. I didn't get much sleep. I'm so sorry, but give me one second. Get a sip of coffee. I am good. Okay, so they don't make a profit. In terms of central banks getting involved with cryptos, I think initially what they'll do is they'll monitor existing cryptos in their economies. And then what they'll do is they'll start tying in very small parts of secure elements from cryptocurrencies in their traditional currencies. Yeah, but it's going to take a while. You can look at El Salvador as a case study because they've kind of adopted Bitcoin as their reserve currency, which I think is problematic and a bit too much of a risk to bet an economy on. Yeah. Okay, next up, has a question, which is Gary Vaynerchuk, in a recent speech, said blockchain takes the leverage out of superpowers like Russia, China, United States, etc. So I'm wondering if these countries would ever allow blockchain ecosystems to flourish. They will. The more right-wing they are, like the United States is more capitalist, more right-wing, the more likely they're going to allow this to happen. However, if at any point in time they feel threatened from a national security perspective, they will shut it down. Kind of like Putin shut down cryptos a while back because he feels threatened, because the ruble is just a loser currency, right? So the more threatened you feel, the more likely you are to shut down cryptos. Okay. Next up, the Financial Advisor Show, who's in my MBA program. How are you? Chris, what is the best teleprompter you can recommend? Some come with limited characters in a script, and you have to upgrade in order to get more. How does it work? Yeah. So my favorite type of teleprompters, and I use it when I teach as well. Okay. And on the floor, you can't see this, but I have a pedal, and I click on it, which goes to the next slide. And the way I set it up is the teleprompter right here, which is not on right now, but the teleprompter right here, it's just a computer screen, and I run PowerPoint slides on it with the pedal on the ground. You can do this in an interview as well. If they ask you questions about a stock or telling about yourself, you can click through the slides, they'll never know. And so what you do is you do it using PowerPoint on a monitor, okay? And you reflect it through a mirror. And I'll show you the product I use in a second from Amazon. And then what you do is you reverse the background of the screen. And the reason I say that is because with the default for PowerPoint is a white background, white backdrop with black font, black text. You reverse it so that it's actually white text on black background. And I have a lot of students that have aced their interviews doing this as well, and nobody knows. Yeah. So let me show you what it looks like real quick. So I'll show you a couple different examples, and I've purchased these as well for my students that have partnered with me on doing a course. Okay, so let's go here to orders, and I'll show you which teleprompters I recommend looking at. There's a cheap version and an expensive version. Okay, here it is here. So here's the cheaper version right here. It's called the Parrot teleprompter. Okay. And what you do is you just hook it up directly to your camera, okay? And then it's got a mirror, and then you put your iPhone on the bottom or your Android handset, and then you'll be able to go through the slides. Or what you can do, and this is what I've done, and I'm embarrassed to show you the price of this, but it's what I do. It's my career. I have a 17-inch one right here, okay? And the way it works is this screen here at the bottom, it connects directly to my computer. Okay, and there's an HDMI port on the back of this here. And then what you do is you click on the slides, you buy a cheap USB pedal, which I can tell you where to get if you're curious, and it goes to the next slide. And you'll see here they've got a black background with white text. Okay, but I promise you, if you get something like this, and there are much cheaper alternatives, they're just as good, if not better, If you get one of these things, I promise you'll run circles around the competition. Now, anybody that does the news, they use these things. You think they go off, they kind of go off script and say something funny or something intelligent. A lot of it is right here on the teleprompter. And if anybody has additional questions about that, please let me know. And thank you for the question as always. Okay. Okay. Next, and there are some teleprompters in iPhone apps and Android apps you can buy, so that it works, with the mirror, which I showed you, and they work to the extent that as you talk, the text will scroll as well. So if you speak slowly, it'll scroll slowly. If you speak quickly, like I do sometimes, it'll scroll quickly as well. Yeah. All right. Pearl, good to see you. Financial Advisor Show wrote, additionally, what are your thoughts on the core satellite investing strategy, meaning constructing portfolio consisting of 60 to 75% ETF spread across growth, dividends, bonds, and RE, which I guess is real estate. Real estate, yeah. I've never heard a core satellite strategy that way, but I think what you're asking is diversification, which I teach a lot about in my MBA program and my finance courses. I don't think we should ever have more than 5% of our liquid net worth, meaning our net worth excluding our shelter, our house, or apartment. I don't think we should ever have more than 5% of our liquid net worth in any one particular stock. And I teach a lot more about diversification, if you're curious, in my MBA program. All right. All right. Next up, Pearl wrote, "What does U.S. government going? What does U.S. government going digital currency mean for all cryptocurrencies?" Yeah. I don't think they're fully going crypto yet. They're just dipping their toe in the water. But what I love to do whenever I look to invest in companies or a sector, and I've invested in Coinbase for a long, long time. I remember I met with the CEO founder, Fred Urson, in my office in 2013 when he worked, when he was the CEO of Coinbase. I think it's going to take time. I don't think anyone's going to adopt it right away. But if you look 5 years from now, and this is what I always ask myself before investing in companies, 5 years from now, will this company or this infrastructure or technology platform be more or less relevant than it is today? I ask myself that question. And with respect to Coinbase and other infrastructure companies with cryptocurrencies, yes, in 5 years, that market will be more relevant than it is today. And yes, it will tie in somehow to fiat paper-based currencies. So I think it's coming, but I think it's going to be slower than most people think. Yeah. Let me get a little water here, guys. Thanks. All right. Next up, the question is, as a Canadian wanting to buy real estate in the United States, how do I move forward with its process, research, and proper application? Any requirements for the United States to open an LLC or C Corp to buy real estate in the United States? No, you don't have to. Like, there's a lot of, they call Florida the 11th province. A lot of snowbirds in Canada go down to Florida. My parents go there every year, my wife's parents, and tons of Canadians own real estate in Florida. You don't have to set up a shell company to do that. If you want to invest from a corporate perspective, I would talk to a lawyer first, or you can contact my good friend who's the #1 real estate strategist in Canada named Tom Karadza. So search for Tom Karadza. He runs Rockstar Real Estate based in Toronto, one of my best friends, and ask him about it, and he'll tell you, because I just don't know much about the legal structure. Thanks. All right. Next question is from Hui, who wrote, "Hi, Chris. What are the differences between swing trading and day trading?" Yeah, they're both pretty similar. Day trading means you're trying to make money every single day, which is impossible, and you'll be fooled by randomness, and you'll never make it longer term doing that, I promise you. And the reason I say that is because we can't name successful day traders. They just don't exist, and I haven't. Maybe 1 year they'll do well, but it's not repeatable because every single month has 20 weekdays, which means 20 trading days. You can't make money every month. Swing trading is kind of like that, but you look at extremes, right? So what you want to do is you want to analyze the relative strength index, moving averages, ascending and descending triangles, etc. I can go there if you want me to and give you a live tutorial on that. But I humbly recommend you look at these three things in this order before investing in anything. Number one, fundamentals. Number two, valuation. And a distant third, technicals. So FVT. Fundamentals, valuation, and technicals. And in my MBA program, I give you plenty of templates like that to help you pick stocks and do your own research. Yeah. All right. Cruncher said, good morning, Chris. How are you? Good to see you. Next up, we got Sam, who wrote, what type of investments should we make during a war? Inflation and bull markets, bear markets, natural disaster, etc. Yeah, it's a lot of questions there. Yeah. Oof. I hate to profit off a war, but usually the defense contractors do well, like General Dynamics and Lockheed Martin, ticker LMT. They tend to do well for obvious reasons, And what's happened over the past couple of weeks in Ukraine, which it's tragic, but what's happened is you've reversed decades of post-Cold War diplomacy to the extent that a lot of countries are going to be spending a lot more money on defense, and so a lot of people are starting to buy defense stocks now for obvious reasons. Yeah. In terms of what do you invest in during a bull market means when the market's doing exceptionally well. So what I recommend investing in a bull market is stocks with a high beta. And the way it works is this. The S&P 500, just accept this, has a beta of 1. Companies that are very volatile, that go up and down a lot, have a beta that are higher than 1. So a company that has a beta of 2 means for every $1 the S&P 500 goes up, that stock with a beta of 2 goes up $2. And so during bull markets, you want to invest in higher beta stocks because you get more upside. However, in a bear market, which is your next question here, you don't want to do that. You want to invest in stocks with low relative betas. And if you're curious about stocks with low relative betas, you'll just take a look at Warren Buffett's portfolio, do a search online. Yeah. And a lot of his companies have healthy dividend yields, and they're cheap as well because he's a value investor. So bull market, be a growth investor. Bear market, be more of a value investor. Yeah. In terms of inflation, what do you invest in? So what I do, and inflation's crazy, man. It's the highest it's been in 40 years. It's touching 8% here in America, according to a report I read this morning. So what I like to do is I like to buy TIPS. And you can do your own research on this, but TIPS stands for Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. And what that means is that's a U.S. government bond instrument, okay, that goes up the amount of interest that's on it, so say 0.5%, plus the annual rate of inflation, hence the name Treasury Inflation Protected Securities. Okay, next up, Tama wrote, good morning, boss. Call me Chris, please. Good to see you. Zoralina, how are you? I hope to see you again for the 4th week in a row on our Silver Webcast at 10. Hope your cats are going well. Your cats' names are Mimi and Mumu, I think, right? Yeah. Zoralina is from France originally, but lives in Canada. All right, give me 1 second, guys, here, please. Thank you. Okay. All right, next up, Sam wrote, how do you protect yourself and your business from lawsuits, etc.? Yeah. So the most important thing I can tell you, and I'm going to get down on my knees for this right now. I wonder if I can use a different camera angle for this. I'm going to get down on my knees because I care a lot, guys, and I want to make sure that you're protected. All right, here I go. This is Chris getting down on his knees right now, trying to make a point. Okay. Please, 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 please. Before you start a company, talk to a lawyer and register it, because people will come after you with lawsuits and you'll lose everything. You'll lose your house, your car, everything. And once you're successful, they'll come after you. It happens all the time. People come after me. They never win. I fight them aggressively, but they come after you. And so what you do is, if you're in the United States or Canada, go to LegalZoom.com to register your company so that you're protected. And if you're in other countries, do a search online for what is the LegalZoom equivalent in your country's name. And the reason I mention LegalZoom is because it's cheap. It's $30 for a half-hour call with a lawyer, as long as you get a 6-month contract. You got to protect yourself. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, so I will never, ever, ever give legal advice except talk to a lawyer, which isn't really that helpful, to be honest. But make sure you do that. But if there's criminal activity, you're not protected, right? So make sure you set up a legal entity so you can protect yourself. Because the world is it's a mean place, man. When you're successful, people come after you. Yeah. All right. Next question I've got here is, another way to protect your business and yourself from is of course to set up trademarks, copyrights, patents, etc. If you go to LegalZoom.com, they explain how to do that as well. And I've trademarked and copyrighted everything of mine. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next question is, where should I learn more about taxes, write-offs, and deductions? Yeah. So I don't recommend that anybody do your own taxes. Don't ever do your own taxes. Okay. I recommend hiring an accountant, because accountants, their profession is to make sure that they're up to date and up to speed on changing tax regulations. And regulations change all the time. And a good accountant will keep you out of trouble as well. And doing your own taxes for your entire life is just as silly, in my humble opinion, as doing surgery on yourself. There's a reason why the accounting designation exists. So always hire an accountant to keep you out of trouble and to also get you as many write-offs as possible. And I guarantee that everybody in this call spends money on something that they can get a write-off on. All you got to do is ask your accountant. Now, for example, education. In many countries, you can write off education. Okay, next question is from Ali. Ali, good to see you. Ali wrote, "Hello, Coach Chris. How are you? Happy to be here today. Likewise. Are you aware? Is Raj Rajaratnam out of prison?" Yes, he is. And then you wrote here, he wrote a book in prison. My question is, do legitimate hedge funds ever make real money? Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So for those of you not familiar with Raj Rajaratnam, he was in jail for a decade. He just got out recently for insider trading. And so he ran a hedge fund called Galleon, which was in Midtown West in New York City. I have a lot of friends that work there. And he got arrested for insider trading and pulled a lot of other CEOs down with him, including the CEO of McKinsey. Yeah. And what he did was he'd be in the morning meetings. I met with him too. I remember I had dinner with him once in Miami at a Deutsche Bank conference at the Ritz-Carlton. And I could kind of tell there's something off there. But my friends that used to work for him, what they would tell me is they'd say, "Chris, it's so hard because every day during the morning meeting, Raj will ask us, how is the quarter going on companies that they cover?" And we'd answer something like this. "Well, as I told you yesterday, Intel is likely tracking ahead of expectations." And then Raj would interrupt and say, "No, as of this morning, how's the quarter going? Have you talked to your contacts?" And they had bags of money they would give people that worked at big tech companies as well. It's disgusting. And so a lot of people got pulled down in that scandal, including a very good friend of mine. And when bad things happen to friends of mine, I run towards them, not away. I visited a lot of friends in jail as well that went to jail for this. And a buddy of mine, I wrote a letter to the judge, which is part of the open public domain. You can do a search on. I'm very proud to stand by him. And he just had 6 months house arrest because he helped out. And what he did was he worked at a hedge fund, and he was on the other side of a trade that Raj did and Galleon did. And so he instead of going to jail, he partnered with the district attorney in New York and helped them to take Raj down. And so my friend, his name is Gotham. What happened was he just had 6 months house arrest, which wasn't that bad because he played GTA. And he got really good at GTA. That's how I'm ever talking to him. Yeah. Just be careful. Even it's interesting because I remember when I used to work in the hedge fund industry, the billionaire founders at certain hedge funds would tell me, and everybody, if we think a company is going to get acquired, buy stocks, buy the shares, as long as it's not insider information, but do not buy options. Don't ever buy options if you think M&A is happening, because you will get investigated. And so what's happening right now is with respect to the Activision acquisition by Microsoft announced in January. What's happening is David Geffen and Barry Diller, who are both high school dropouts that started in the mailroom together. They're friends. The government's investigating them now because the day before the Activision takeover is announced, MSFT for ATVI, they bought call options. Yeah. So you got to be careful. And if you think you have insider information on something, if you think you do, and you're not sure, is this insider information? I don't know. Don't trade on it. And if you work at a finance company, if you think you heard something, tell your compliance director always. Or if you work at a non-finance company, tell your boss. And if you're lining up at Starbucks for a coffee and there's a couple of employees ahead of you that work for, say, Intel, and if they say something like, oh my gosh, we're going to crush our numbers this quarter, you can't trade on that. Don't tell anybody that either, because you can go to jail for years. And Martha Stewart, America's sweetheart, that she has her own talk show and Omni Media, her company. And she went to jail for 2 years for insider trading. Yeah. It's never worth it. Okay. And Andre wrote, I love your setup. Thanks. Trying something different today, man. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Cruncher said, Can you explain how the energy sector works in the United States? Also, the real scoop on how the Biden policies affect the energy production in the United States. Yeah. So the way it works in America, and you'll notice that the price of gas is different in every state and in every city. It's dramatically different. It's because the closer you are to the natty gas repositories, right, where they mine it or drill for it, the lower the price is. Also, taxes play a big part in every single state as well. In terms of Joe Biden's policy with respect to Russia, so he's blocking all imports of oil and oil-based products from Russia. Now, that's only 3% of the oil that America uses. The impact's going to be much bigger on the rest of the world. We're already seeing the impact when it comes to horrific inflation. And if you go to the gas pump now in America, some people I know have been paying $7. It's terrible. Yeah. All the more reason to buy Tesla stock and buy battery-operated cars. Yeah. And there was a famous Saudi oil executive from Saudi Aramco years ago who said the Stone Age did not end because they ran out of stones. And so I think that Europe is going to be focused much more so than the rest of the world on clean energy and not being reliant on Gazprom, Lukoil, and other criminal Russian companies. When I say criminal, I'm talking about Putin, not Russian people at all. But I did invest those companies years ago, and I told myself I never would because I did work on Gazprom and Lukoil, and the valuation was cheap. I was like, oh my God, these companies are trading at 3 times earnings. Well, those earnings were fraudulent. They weren't correct. All right. Next up, Kamar wrote, what do you think about Canadian real estate market in Ontario? Nothing is stopping it. Is it a bubble or real demand driving it crazy? Yeah. So Canada did not have a commensurate pullback in real estate prices or the mortgage crisis that America had back in 2008. And the reason is, in the United States, unlike almost every country in the world, you can write off the interest on your mortgage. It's tax deductible. Now, Canada does not have that, and Canada has a very sound financial system with only 6 banks. Right? It's heavily regulated. So there's a lot more checks and balances in place when it comes to real estate. That being said, it is getting out of control. And a lot of it is because you have billionaire Chinese billionaires, Russians, etc., buying real estate in Canada. It's a great thing for the Canadian economy. Yeah, but I think it's all going to end badly. If you want to learn more about real estate, specifically in the province of Ontario, I want you to call and look up my good friend Tom Karadza. I go on vacation with him and his family all the time. He runs Rockstar Real Estate, which is the #1 real estate company in Ontario. Yeah. Okay. And I do think it's a bubble. And once interest rates rise, and they will because of inflation, then fewer people are going to buy houses. So I wouldn't be looking to buy a house right now because I think that rates are going to be going up a lot. And if interest rates go up, then people think to themselves, I'll just leave my money in the bank. I'm not going to buy stocks. I'm not going to invest in venture capital. I'm not going to buy NFTs. I'm also not going to buy real estate. And if we go back to 1980, the early 1980s, I remember this well. In 1980, I was 8 years old. I'm dating myself, I'm 50 now. Wow, 50. But in 1980, I was 50 years old. And I remember interest rates in Canada were close to 20%. And the reason they were was because the United States federal chairperson at the time, Paul Volcker, God bless me, passed away not too long ago. What Paul Volcker did was, in order to stop inflation, he raised rates close to 20% in America, which impacted Canada. And I remember my dad, he was in the early stages of starting his company. We had a mortgage in our house and the rate was 20%. It was brutal. I mean, he made it through. He's a brilliant businessman, but it was rough. It was rough. And at that point in time in the early 80s, when interest rates were close to 20%, again, people thought to themselves, I'm just going to put my money in the bank. I'm not going to buy stocks or invest in startups. And that's why the stock market did terrible in the early 80s under the Carter administration until Reagan came and rescued the economy. And I love Ronald Reagan. I wish they made another one like him right now to be president. Yeah. More so than ever now because he won Cold War I. And Cold War II started 2 weeks ago. Yeah. All right. Next up, Sam wrote, I'm excited for Chris's new courses this year. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you enjoy them. We're always pushing the goalpost out here, trying to get better and better and better with what we do. And it's amazing how far we've come. I remember my first webcast. This is webcast 175. My first one, I had a little laptop with a 720 screen, and I was sitting down, and I was nervous, and there's no questions. So I always had a prepared script of something to say. Yeah. And this couldn't have happened without Matt Lacousse, my wonderful Chief Creative Officer and partner here in my company. All right. Next up, Manas. Hey, Manas, how are you? Manas is from India. He's one of my wonderful students. He's also published a number of Udemy courses. He wrote a book called Bonds Before Business, which I purchased as well. So Manas wrote, good morning, my dear mentor. Call me Chris, please. Hope all is well. And then you wrote, what a great week and what a great mentor to teach us today. My mentor, what's next? What's next? The war between on for more than 2 weeks now. Oil is at record high. Yeah. So it all depends on what Putin does next. Do I think oil is going to an all-time high? Absolutely. But it's all predicated on what Putin does next. We have no idea. And what's happening now with economic sanctions is it's forcing Russia to become even closer with China. And China has not really disapproved of the war. It's kind of frightening. And so Visa and MasterCard pulled out of the Soviet Union, Russia, a couple of days ago. And so what's happening now is the credit card of choice, the default credit card in Russia is now a Chinese credit card company controlled by the Chinese government. I think it's called UnionPay. Yeah. So I think what's happening is just going to push Russia to get closer to China. And I'm glad the whole world is basically putting on massive economic sanctions, because what the world is saying is that China, don't you even think about invading Taiwan. And Russia, don't even think about invading Belarus and other countries. Yeah. And Ukraine is massive, man. It's like the biggest country in Europe. But I hope this passes. This goes by peacefully. Yeah. And I agree with the Biden administration's comment about Soviet era airplanes in Poland not going to Ukraine. Yeah. But I do pray that this ends ASAP. And I have students actually that are a lot actually from Kiev. And one of them in particular, my MBA program, I talked to him through one-on-ones. He and his family moved to Israel for a while until the war is over. Yeah, crazy. I hope you all enjoyed your 5 minutes of peace and happiness in between COVID and World War III. I'm kidding. There's not going to be World War III. It's not going to happen. Okay. Next up, Sam wrote, do you use game theory in business and investing? Absolutely. Now, Wayne Gretzky, he said that he wasn't successful because he skated to where the puck is. Wayne Gretzky said he was successful because he skated to where the puck is going to be. What does that mean for investing? Well, that means that we should only invest in stocks that people are going to like. Okay, so don't invest in companies that everybody already loves, because there aren't that many incremental investors to push it higher. So how do you invest in companies that people are going to like? Well, what the hedge fund industry does, and what I used to do in the hedge fund industry, is we look at catalysts. Okay, catalyst means a reason for a stock to go up or down. So for example, back in 2012, we invested in Lionsgate Film, LGF. And I read the first Hunger Game books, I remember in 2011. And in 2012, LGF, Lionsgate Film, announced that they were going to be releasing several Hunger Game movies. And so those are catalysts. Those are reasons to get people excited. And so whenever a new movie came out for Hunger Games, they made 4 instead of the 3 books. Lionsgate Film will go up a lot because that was a production company that made the movies. When it comes to software, the same thing works. So with Take-Two, ticker TTWO, it's the parent company that makes Rockstar, that owns Rockstar Games and makes Grand Theft Auto. When they release GTA 6, the stock is going to rip to the upside. And so you want to be there before that. Now, obviously, you can't have insider information about it, but we do know that eventually, likely within the next 12 months, Take-Two, ticker TTWO, is going to announce that they are going to be releasing GTA 6, and investors will get excited. So the bottom line is this: you want to skate to where the puck is going to be, and only buy stocks that people are going to like by analyzing catalysts. Okay, and that's part of game theory, yeah. And Putin has certainly used game theory a lot as well when it comes to attacking Ukraine. So Putin did his undergraduate degree in geology, and his thesis was, how can the USSR at the time control most of the world's natural resources and get more power that way? And so everything he talked about is kind of playing out right now. And he certainly uses game theory as well, meaning thinking a couple moves ahead in chess, but he's no Kasparov, right? He's made costly mistakes. I don't think he had any idea that global economic sanctions would be anything remotely close to this. Yeah. And what's kind of frightening is he's talking about these sanctions being an act of war. Okay. All right, next up, Manas wrote, "What a great background, my mentor." Thank you. I remember last week or the week before you said it looked kind of boring. And you wrote, my advice from last week. Excellent. Awesome. Okay, next up, Zoralina wrote, "Hi, Chris. I have a mobile crepe business." Oh, cool. That I've been preparing for 18 years. I want to sell it. I have no idea how I should approach it and what to ask for. Yeah. So I think you're in the silver program, and I think you've been on the past couple of weekly calls. If you want, starting at 10 a.m., we can do a Zoom session together, and I can talk to you about that in more detail, and I can go through your business plan as well at 10 a.m. But in terms of what to sell a company for in general, well, the amount of money you can sell a company for is always predicated on what similar companies sell for. And if it's a private company, you'll probably look at an EBITDA multiple or a revenue multiple if the company is not yet profitable. But what we'll do is during our meeting at 10 a.m. over Zoom, I'll give you an hour's worth of what to do. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, wrote, "Since I'm planning to re-enter the workforce in programming after a 5-year gap of starting and running an e-commerce business, how do I make sure the recruiter doesn't see my work gap negatively?" Yeah. Well, given the fact that you worked in e-commerce for 5 years, I'm sure you did a lot of technical work. So you can list that as well. You did a lot of technical work in e-commerce. Some of it was probably coding, strategy, etc., IT infrastructure deployment. And that's additive to the company that you're going to join because you actually started a company that did a lot of that IT infrastructure deployment. And given the fact that you started a company, these are additional skill sets that you can add to a larger company when it comes to being a programmer or working in the tech sector. And if you're in the silver program at 10 a.m. today, I'm happy to go through your LinkedIn profile and resume for you and humbly help you as well. Yeah. And I'm a humble guy, but not when it comes to helping my students get jobs and with their resumes. Nobody's better than me. And I know that didn't sound humble at all, and is maybe a bit surprising from this Canadian humble teacher, but I will walk through walls for my students. Yeah. Okay. And if you're in the silver program, just go to the first lesson in the curriculum, and you'll see a link there for today's and all weekly webcasts as well, including the Zoom link. Okay, next up, Sanyam wrote, "Hello, Chris. Glad to see you here again. Thank you, likewise. My question is skill-based. What part or functions of Microsoft Excel do you think are must-knows for finance professionals, and how do you present them using a curriculum vitae?" Yeah, resume, yeah. So I would say that most people only use 5% of what Excel has to offer. Now, when it comes to finance, what I would probably say is I'd probably write it like this. Extremely experienced in Microsoft Excel, and then in brackets put building and forecasting financial statements, working on merger models, etc. And if you're in the silver program, I could teach you a bunch of stuff as well. I'm actually creating something for my MBA students I can release later this year that's going to help you program using Excel, using macros, VBA, Visual Basic for applications to take your career to the next level. Yeah. Okay. And Zoralina wrote, "Your new background is awesome." No, thank you, man. It's cool. Again, hats off to Matt Lacus, my incredible chief creative officer for putting this together. It's great. I love it. Yeah, I love it. And what you can see here is it's actually these are just little like 3D printed pieces of plastic, and I just stuck them on the wall. Yeah. And there's a big stencil that went on top of it as well, so I wouldn't mess it up. I kind of messed it up. That's okay though. Not sure if I like the colors there, but work in progress. All right. Next up, the Berlin, who's in my MBA program, wrote, "Good morning, people. Hopefully everyone is doing well. Let's get it. Let's go. I love your positive attitude." Yeah, it's infectious. Yeah. Okay, moving on to Manas, who wrote, "By the way, I published one more course this week. It's been crazy now. But I'm loving all of it to ask you this week. I'm on day 80 of my vlogging, and it's super awesome. Thanks to you." That's awesome you're doing it, man. I tell you, when you do this vlogging stuff, it can really feel like you're screaming into the wind. And that goes for any social media program you guys set up. What I would say is focus on the end goal. Be consistent also, meaning if you're going to vlog once a week, do it at the exact same time so your viewers expect it and they know what to look for and when to look for it. Also, I would use Gary Vaynerchuk's approach of repurposing content so that you can work smarter, not harder. So, for example, with this weekly webcast, what I do is it's 2 hours, and then based on the 7 best questions, we make 7 vlogs, and we make micro content as well. Yeah. So there's nothing left in the carcass by the time we're done. Okay, next up, Ohm wrote, "Hey Chris, are you able to complete the whole bottle every day? I have a hard time on most days to complete mine. Would appreciate your advice on this too. Thanks." Yeah, we are 60% water, so this is part of my biohacking approach. I try my best. Most of the time I don't. Most of the time I get down to here, and there's hours as well on it, right? So right now it's what time is it here? It's almost 9, so I'm at 9 a.m. here actually. Yeah, but I tend to trail off towards the end of the day. You can buy this on Amazon or anywhere. It's just a cheap plastic bottle, but I find it helps me a lot from a biohacking perspective to stay sharp. Yeah, which I'm certainly not today. Okay, next up, Demian said, "So dope the studio set." Thanks, brother. I'm glad you like it. It's cool. It's fun. The problem is though is this. Like I had the backdrop here. And if I put the backdrop light all the way up, you got shadows there as well. I don't like that look of the shadows. But if I turn it off entirely, it's dark at the bottom. So it's a little bit lighter at the bottom now, right here. You see that? Yeah, it's fun. Okay, next up, Sam wrote, are there any new business tools, theories, or models in the last few years that are useful or important? Yeah. So I would say anything business intelligence or analytics based. Any application you can use to analyze data that's more sophisticated than using a pivot table in Excel. And the way to learn those products is you can go to Udemy if you want to search for business analytics courses by Maven Analytics, run by Chris Dutton. Really, really good guy. Yeah. And I'll be publishing stuff like that soon. Yeah. Not as good as Chris Maven though. Yeah. Chris from Maven. All right. Next up, Carrie Ann wrote, "Hi, Chris and everyone. I'm from Jamaica." Excellent. Great to have you. If I had a red stripe in my hand, I'd toast you right now. Not a Carib. I'm from Jamaica, and I'm concerned about the information you share and the applicability of it, such as starting a business, market research, etc. Yeah, sure. And let me know if you have a question. Okay, let me read that again. "Hi, Chris and everyone. I'm from Jamaica, and I'm concerned about the information you share and the applicability of it, such as starting a business, market research, etc. Yeah. So provide me with more details, please, because failing to plan is planning to fail. And so I really think it makes sense before starting a company that you write a full business plan. And this is just one of the many tools I provide my students. Yeah. But please share with us all your concerns in more detail. Thank you. And welcome to the call. Okay. Thomas wrote, hi, Chris, you're awesome. Oh, thank you. Good to see you. And Harsh wrote, hi, Chris. Hi, Chris Show. How are you? I'm always great. Thanks. Didn't get much sleep last night. I was trying to put this sign up here, but it's okay. I'm tired, but I'm happy. All right, next up, Sam wrote, Coursera, DataCamp, and Udemy are great for data science. I'm a data scientist senior at university. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of great online courses. Yeah. Okay, next question is from Naman, who wrote, kindly make a course on music production. Yeah, I would love to. I'm certainly not an expert in that area. Now, my chief creative officer, Matt Lacousse, is. He's an accomplished musician as well, and he's a scratch golfer. This guy does it all. He's a Renaissance man. And if you're in the Platinum MBA program, you can get one-on-ones with him as well. I'm sure he'll help you out with that. But I might be tone deaf. I don't know. All right, next up, the Berlin, who's in my MBA program, said, Chris, Warren Buffett said in 2016 that we are going to hit a low or negative interest rates, and he doesn't know how it's going to look like, which we are going through. But there is a second interview and you got a part 2 here. Let me scroll down to part 2. And then in the next downturn, we're going to go through slow growth for a long time. What do you think about that? Yeah. I don't know if I agree with him with negative interest rates. We almost went there, actually, in March of 2020, at the peak of COVID. We almost went there to the extent that the price of oil, this is crazy, the price of oil was negative during one day in March of 2020. How can the price of oil be negative? Well, there's panic selling. People are emotional. As Warren Buffett said, the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. So why was oil negative? The price of oil was negative briefly in 2020 because it costs you $600,000 every day to keep an oil tanker afloat in the Baltic Sea, for example. Yeah. Of course, now we're going to all-time highs in oil within the next few weeks. All right. Okay. Next up, Harsh wrote, I'm starting my graphic design agency. Can you tell me how can I get clients for the agency? Great question. So you got to think like a thought leader and opine a lot and publish a lot of YouTube content, LinkedIn posts, etc. And the way you become a thought leader, it's like the Rodin sculpture. I think, therefore I am. And so it costs you nothing to publish YouTube videos. It costs you nothing to write articles in LinkedIn. And if you do it long enough, what happens is people think of you as a thought leader and you get interviewed by the media, etc. And that will help your business a lot. Now, what I did was I wrote over 100 articles on LinkedIn, one every week for 2 years. And then I took all those articles and I threw it together into this book called 101 Crucial Lessons They Don't Teach in Business School. And then based on the content of this, I've made a lot of courses as well. And so this is kind of my manuscript. But the way to become a thought leader, again, is to think like one, give your opinion a lot. And whenever you make content, I always want to ask yourself one quick question. So what? I say with love in my heart. So what? Am I adding value or not? Am I helping enhance people's lives? And you can't just make content to want to make money. You have to really want to help people and serve others. And if you do that long enough, I promise you good things will come. Call it karma synchronicity, call it what you will. But if you give, you'll receive. It's prophetic. It's been true since the beginning of time. And if you write your own articles and do your own videos, then your marketing department is non-existent. It doesn't exist. You don't spend any money. Like Coca-Cola has 40 billion annual revenues and they spend 10% or $4 billion every year on advertising. Have you ever seen a commercial for Tesla? I haven't. So what Elon Musk does is he's a thought leader. He gives his opinion all the time. All the time. And he's controversial, which is genius if you're controversial and tasteful, because it gets you free media attention. So whatever company it is you're starting, you got to be somewhat confrontational as well. So if you're starting a software company like Mark Benioff did in 1999, he started out by saying that software is dead. And his logo back in 1999 was a cloud and beside it the word software with a line through it. So he was saying software is dead because the cloud's going to take over. And because of that, he was on tons of different television programs giving his controversial opinion, which was brilliant and free marketing. And that's why Salesforce is the largest company now in San Francisco. Okay, next up, Pearl wrote, I'm excited for the programming course. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be radically different from the way programming has ever been taught before. I've got a lot of props. I got a 3D printer as well. I'm doing something different. I have very small hands. No, just kidding. But for example, when you program, the way computers think is you start big and go small. So if I want this eraser to turn green, I would say pencil.eraser.color equals green. So I got tons of props as well. I'm going to do it a radically different way. I'll probably crash and burn, but I don't care. It's going to be fun. Getting back to my roots. Okay. Next up, Ali wrote, my country, Zambia, is a $24 billion economy with a population of about 18 million people. Would it be profitable to start a hedge fund here? Is a hedge fund dependent on the country's economic size? Yeah. So if you're going to run a hedge fund, you want to make sure that you invest in stocks that are very, very liquid. And the reason a lot of hedge funds went belly up in 2008 was because they owned stocks that didn't trade that much. And there's a joke on Wall Street that illiquid stocks own you in a down market rather than vice versa. So just generally speaking, make sure that the stocks that you invest in whatever market people are looking at, are liquid enough so you can get in and out within an hour. Okay, and Harsh wrote, I'm in your MBA class, Chris. Can I start trading options? Yeah. So I recommend go to FA44 in the MBA curriculum. That's Finance and Accounting, Semester 4, Class number 4. There's a 30-hour elective I just put up. It's in your version, all versions of the MBA program, where I teach about shorting in a lot more detail as well as options. But I would practice for at least 6 months before you make your first options trade, as I discuss in that component of the Silver program. And if you're in Silver, go to the first lesson and join me, please, at 10 a.m. For a Zoom call. I'd love to meet you and talk to you about that in more detail, if you have time. Okay. And if this is helpful, please click the like button as well. My marketing team always asks me to say that. Okay. Next up, Eric wrote, good morning, Chris. Good morning to you as well. And then you wrote, good morning, Chris, you beautiful people. Thank you. Thank you. I remember my buddies from Brooklyn, I used to always tell them, you're good people. That's what they say there, yeah. You wrote, I'm torn between a startup, which would be humanity changing. Yeah, so you're not sure whether or not to start it, yeah, or to go to that startup, yeah. So here's what I always recommend, okay? If you're not sure what to do career-wise, and I'll make this a generic answer to apply to everybody. If you come to a fork in the road and you're not sure which path do I take, don't just go with your gut, because your gut is qualitative. You have to quantify it. And so what I recommend you do is you open up Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets or Numbers if you work at Apple. And what you do is you create 2 columns. Column 1 is one job you're thinking of working at, and another one is another job you're thinking of working at. Okay, or whatever stage in your life you're thinking of switching from A to B. So 2 columns. Then in the rows, write down questions like, is the corporate culture good at this company? Would I have a good balance of life? Would I have to travel? What is the compensation like? And then what you do is you score them for both columns and add them up, and whatever number is highest is the job you take or the path you take in life. And obviously don't just do 3 questions or 3 rows. You want to do 50 to 100 of them. And that way it'll stop you from just thinking about qualitative stuff. If you can't quantify something, it's it's kind of useless from a business perspective. You always have to quantify decisions. Yeah. And Larry Page, his dad was a professor at Michigan, and Vasco Dali, one of my good friends actually, was his student. And his dad used to always tell him, if you don't have data to back it up, it's just an opinion and nothing more. And interestingly enough, if you look at the top 50 employees at Google, almost all of them had at least one parent that was a teacher. When one teaches, two learn. They say those who can't do, teach, and those who can't teach gym class. And I suck at sports. You're all out of luck. Yeah. I'm just kidding about those who can't do, teach. I love teachers. They're my heroes. Okay. All right. And if I miss any questions, just post them again. Demian wrote, the best investment you can make is to be part of the MBA. Thank you. I appreciate that. A disruptive way to learn with a superstar teacher. God bless you. Thank you. A humble mentor and a great human being. Thanks, Chris, for all. Thank you, Demian. I appreciate that. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. And if this ever felt like a job, I wouldn't do it. I have the incredible privilege of being able to have you all as customers, and it's just fun for me. Thank you. Okay, so the next question is, Warren Buffett once said, I don't care if the market closes for 10 years or more. What does that mean? Yeah, so Warren Buffett obviously doesn't think the market will be closed for 10 years. That's just how long-term focused he is. And I think it's brilliant. And you have to be long-term focused if you want to make money. You know, instead of trying to chase 10 or 15% upside every year in the market, and the margin of error is so big because stocks can go up or down 10% because of geopolitical stuff or how the market does in general. Instead of doing it that way, I'd be very long-term focused. You have to be. And you got to tell yourself this. And my analyst in my hedge fund years ago, when he used to pitch stocks to me in our morning meeting, he used to tell me, Chris, I don't know I don't know the path, but I know the destination. Again, I don't know the path, but I know the destination. And if you do enough research and fill in enough templates and ignore the world and just focus on your opinion and no one else's when it comes to investing in a stock, you won't give a damn about the volatility. You'll be an owner instead of being a tourist, instead of renting a stock. All right. Next up, Om wrote, in Canada, is it possible to get a mortgage for a home based on my business gross income? Let's say my e-com revenue last year was 200 grand, but my net income was only $35,000. How much loan can you get? Yeah, they're going to look. They're going to look at cash flow period. I know this because I've started companies. I remember years ago I started a hedge fund. In 2008, we were doing great. We were short the market. We're doing fine, whatever. And then I tried to get my mortgage refinanced. I went to Wells Fargo. And they said, sure, you want to get it refinanced? What do you do? And I said, oh, I own a hedge fund. They're like, see ya. Yeah. So they're going to look at the business as well. They're going to look at how much money you make from the business. Yeah, it's rough. You might only be able to get a smaller mortgage. But what I would do is, because you're in Canada, I want you to look up Tom Karadza at Rockstar Real Estate, good friend of mine. He's an expert in Canadian real estate, and he will help you. He'll walk through walls for you as well. He inspires me. He's the reason I do these webcasts, actually. It was his idea. Okay. All right, next question is from Sam, which is, what's the difference between the Ethereum coin and the Ethereum platform? Yeah. So Ethereum's coin is called Ether, ticker ETH. And Ethereum itself includes Ether and the platform. But when people say the platform with Ethereum, they basically mean the blockchain or the platform that is used to do ICOs, right? They own the road for ICOs. Most ICOs, which are like IPOs but for cryptos, most ICOs occur on the Ethereum platform. And most NFTs that are made on the Ethereum platform as well. Always invest in platforms. Those are the best investments. They're the most scalable. Christina, how are you? Christina is president of the Haroun Education Ventures MBA degree program, alumni group. She graduated last year along with her husband, Christian, here in the Bay Area. So Christina wrote, good morning, Chris, and our amazing Global MBA Family webcast. I hope you're having an outstanding week so far. Cheers, Chris. I'm at 9 a.m. and 400 steps. How about you? Yeah. And we compete. We all compete. And competition is good for the consumer, or co-opetition. The consumer being our hearts and our health. So right now I'm at about about 9:15 or so in terms of steps. And I used to try to get 20,000 steps a day. I pulled back to about 10 or 15,000 now because I'm putting on muscle mass again as my shoulders starting to feel better. In terms of steps, it's going to suck today. 142 steps so far. Yeah. Great to see you. Okay, moving on to, let me see here. The Berlin wrote, I believe when governments regulate crypto, it's going to blow up. Big institutions are going to buy. Once regulated banks will know how to offer it to people. Yeah, and I think a great signal for Bitcoin and cryptos in general was about a year ago when the American government basically said they're working on a white paper. They're partnering with MIT about the future of cryptos in the United States. And the fact that local governments in the United States have been talking about taxing cryptos. That's a good thing if you're bullish on cryptos, because it signals they're not going to make them illegal. They're just going to tax them. Yeah. And there's nowhere to hide. Like, a lot of people try to hide out in cryptos and not pay taxes. You can't hide there, because all these trading platforms and wallet companies like Coinbase, by law, they have to turn over their financials to the United States government. And the same thing with Swiss banks. You can't hide in a Swiss bank anymore, because in 2009, there's a precedent that was set, a legal precedent, that the IRS can look at which Americans have Swiss bank accounts. So there's nowhere to hide now. Yeah. Okay, next up, Sam wrote, is the Biden administration likely to approve the Canadian pipeline and other oil exploration and production projects? I think more so now than in the past. Partially because what's happening with oil and Russia. Yeah. But if you're in Canada, you got to be pretty happy if you live up in Fort McMurray in the great province of Alberta, because that heavy oil there is only profitable to mine, so to speak, if the price of oil is over $80. Yeah. And I know they've gone through a tough couple of years now, Alberta, and this will be helpful for them. Okay, next up, Alexander wrote, hi, Chris. It's Alex from Nigeria. How are you? Good to see you. There's a solution around physical asset management that I'm working on for asset-intensive organizations. Aside from EAM and ERP, how can I tie in tech like blockchain to this solution? Yeah. Yeah, ERP standing for Enterprise Resource Planning, which is like Microsoft Office for their whole corporation, except you have one app for different departments in the company, like IT support, finance, accounting, HR, etc. I don't know. I mean, first of all, I'd ensure that your entire infrastructure is scalable and running on various cloud service providers like Amazon Web Services, where the pricing point continues to drop. I don't know, but if you want, if you're part of the Silver MBA program, at 10 a.m. today, you can share your business plan with me, and I'll give you my humble feedback as well. But I need to learn more about it before I can give a half-intelligent answer. Thank you, and welcome to the call. Okay. Next up, Eric wrote, how do you forecast inflation at this time in history? Yeah. Well, it's all based on interest rates. If you think interest rates are going to go up, then inflation will not be rising as much. So the ball's in the hands of the Federal Reserve in the United States. Now, the Federal Reserve, before the war, was saying they were going to raise interest rates in the next 30 days by 50 basis points, meaning 0.5%. Now, given a little bit more instability, despite the fact that inflation is getting worse, they're signaling to the marketplace they're going to raise by 25 basis points. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Monastro, my mentor. What do you think, Chris, please? What do you think the oil crisis will do to the world? You can't ignore Russia, but still countries are doing that. Why do you think that is? Yeah. There's probably a lot of pressure right now from the United States government and other countries on Saudi Arabia and Saudi Aramco and OPEC-related countries to increase production. I think they will. Now, it's tough because Russia, basically, they produce 5 million barrels of oil per day, which is 12% of global production. And the only way around that is for OPEC nations to be able to scale or increase materially the amount of oil they release on a daily basis. And I guarantee you, and I haven't seen this in the media, but I guarantee you that politicians from all major economies are having conversations with Saudi right now, as well as OPEC nations, on increasing the number of barrels that are released to the marketplace. Yeah. And Manos wrote, thank you for everything. My mentor, you're most welcome. You wrote, God bless you all forever and ever, and your family as well. See you forever and ever. Thank you. Thank you for all those wonderful emojis as well. God bless you, brother. Good to see you. Next up, we got Ali, who wrote, hey, Chris, what factors affect currency pairs in Forex? Can you recommend some good books about it, mostly focused on fundamental analysis? Yeah, there are no good books on currency. The best way to learn, and I'll show you this, you guys are going to love this. The best way to learn is to use the news for free. And I'll show you the best resource for macroeconomic stuff, especially when it comes to currencies. Okay, so if we go together to the financialtimes.com, and they want to charge you for the website. Okay, and this is why I will never be sponsored by anybody. I put you guys first because what I'm about to show you means that I'll never get sponsored by the FT. Okay, so let's say right here, this article, the European Central Bank is going to pull back their stimulus plan. And that might have an impact, let's say, on the euro. Okay, so if we click here, what happens is it says, hey, you have to pay if you want to read. So what you do instead is you copy this, okay, copy, and then you paste it right here, and then you click, and then you can read the article for free. And the reason that it occurs this way with some publications, but not all, is because they don't have a sophisticated paywall. And also, if they didn't allow this to take place, then what would happen is, from an SEO perspective, the FT would be penalized. Yeah. So the bottom line is, read the Financial Times, especially the Lex column. It's like the Wall Street Journal, but more global in nature. It's kind of like going to the BBC for news on American politics, which is where I usually go. It's different, kind of a different perspective. Okay. All right. All right. Give me 1 second, guys. Sometimes it skips on me. There's nothing I can do around this. Yeah. Okay, here we go. All right. Next up, a question from which is, what are your thoughts on investing in educational websites like Guru Focus and Seeking Alpha? Do you use these sites for stock research? Yeah, I don't, but I used to use the street.com, as well as streetaccount.com, as well as Seeking Alpha a little bit when I worked in the hedge fund industry. But if you're going to use them, please don't use them when it comes to picking stocks. You can use them as screening services if you want to find stocks based on your screens. You can also use them just to get general news about the markets, get email alerts from Seeking Alpha, for example. Do not ever rely on anybody, especially me or anybody, when it comes to picking stocks. Always do your own research. Otherwise, what will happen is this. You'll rely on somebody else, and then you'll panic sell when the market pulls back. Always do your own research. And Warren Buffett once said, I go to my favorite steakhouse in Omaha every Friday, and I pay $10 for a steak. And if the price of the steak went down to $9, would I buy less of it? No, I'd probably buy more. And that's the mentality you got to have when it comes to doing research on stocks. I don't want you to just look for a stock that's got a 10 or 15% upside in a year. I want you to look for one that will go up multiple times in the long run, okay? And be a pit bull and a pork chop when it comes to not selling that stock. As long as you do your own research. Again, I never tell anybody what stocks to buy, but I provide you with tools in order to analyze stocks and investments. Yeah. Okay, Miss T, how are you? Tanya, right? My MBA program from Toronto. You wrote here, and I think you're from Jamaica originally, I think you mentioned before, but you live in Toronto now. We talked about Carnival, I remember that. She wrote, hey, Chris and everyone. I'm in the MBA class from Toronto. Oh, you wrote to Ohm here. I'm going through investing in U.S. real estate. Don't open an LLC. It's not a flow through for taxes with CRA and leads to double tax. And I guess that's something that Revenue Canada has to say. So make sure you read what Ms. T has to say as well. She's an expert. She works in private equity as well in the Canadian market. And it's great to see you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Ankit wrote, Chris, how are you doing? I'm always great. Thanks. I hope you're doing well as well. Yeah. Okay. Next question is from who wrote, if my plan is to start a fintech startup after 5 to 7 years, what kind of technology startups besides Web3 and blockchain startups do you suggest I get experience in first? Has age got anything to do with it? So let me tackle the age side first, then I'll answer the other question. So age has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. And I remember when I was a kid, people would talk about, hey, I want to retire at 50. Well, the thing is, we're living much longer lives now. It's incredible. If you look at the life expectancy in the 1950s versus today, the life expectancy today is 26 years longer than it was in the 1950s. So that means you're 26 years younger than you are. So if you're 56, you're actually 30, right? And so I'm actually 24. So I wouldn't worry about age. You can always start over. And the best way to do it is always taking online courses when it comes to programming, right? They're affordable. My go-to resource, probably the best teacher online when it comes to programming, is Angela Yu. So just do a search for Angela Yu courses. She's great. Yeah. She's based in England, which means she speaks gooder than me. I always think people with British accents are smarter. Okay. All right. Now, in terms of what kind of technology experience, yeah, I just take online courses from Angela, and also Rob Percival, who's based in Cambridge, also has a British accent, which means he speaks gooder than me. Okay, next question is from Ankit, who wrote, what's your recommendation to get into a top investment bank from a non-target B school? Yeah, it all comes down to networking. It always does. Now, I'm humbled to say I've raised and managed over $1 billion in my career, and a lot of my successes, humble successes, many failures, but my humble successes have come through networking. You know, relationships are more important than product knowledge. I'll do this really quick because I know I've done this before. So just go to my website, okay, which is harounventures.com. And then scroll down, and then you can download this book on how to network for free. Yeah, thank you. Set up informational meetings with people who have something in common with you that maybe work in investment banking. Maybe they went to the same school as you, maybe they're from the same hometown as you, they're in the same organizations as you, etc. Read that book. It'll tell you exactly how to do it. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up, wrote, which 3 books do you suggest I read to gain financial freedom in Canada? Yeah. Okay. So the first one I read when I was a kid in Toronto is called The Wealthy Barber, which is about a hairstylist who's worth millions because he saved. I think it's written by a Canadian as well. The second one I would read is The Millionaire Next Door, which I read also when I was in Canada. I think it was by a Canadian author, I'm not sure. And basically, these books talk about people that live below their means, right? So they don't try to keep up with the Joneses and show off to their friends by buying expensive stuff. They live below their means. And it's a much better way to live too, man. If you live above your means, it ruins your life. And a lot of people that I know that went to jail, they worked at a hedge fund called Galleon. And what happened was they were paid a lot of money every year. They were made over $1 million a year. And what happened was they put their kids in expensive preschools. It cost $30,000 at the time. It's much higher today. They had a great standard of living in New York. And if they didn't get a good bonus every year, their standard of living would go down. And so they broke the law. And there's no excuse for breaking the law. But a lot of times people break the law when it comes to insider trading because they're living above their means. And they compromise their integrity whenever they think they're not going to make as much money. They won't be able to maintain their standard of living. It's crazy. It's so interesting because I look at people like David Geffen, right? So David Geffen, he founded Geffen Music. There's a great documentary on him on Netflix. You guys got to check out. He used to date Cher. But if you look at a lot of these billionaires, they've done incredibly well in their lives. And then later in their lives, they get caught for something like insider trading. Well, I'm not going to tell you that David Geffen is unethical, but a lot of people that are very rich that get caught doing insider trading, does that mean they were cutting corners their entire life? And this is the first time they got caught with insider trading? Yeah. All right. All right. Regarding other books to read for Canadian, to learn about investing in Canada, especially real estate, finance, etc. Just Tom Karadza has a podcast. He mentions great books all the time. Yeah, and he interviewed me once as well. Okay, next up, Alexander wrote, "Hi Chris, Alex from Nigeria. Good to see you. There is a solution around physical asset management." Okay, you posted that question a couple times now. Yeah, thanks. Hopefully you liked my earlier answer. Okay, next up, Patricia, who's in my MBA program, wrote, "The crypto would apparently a regulated new crypto. The crypto would be apparently a regulated new crypto." You're talking about the United States government currency. Yeah. I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens, though. The U.S. dollar is not going anywhere. Yeah. Good to see you. And wrote, "Thanks a lot for your answers, Chris. You're the best." No, thank you. God bless you. Okay. And then A Crow wrote, "I don't know why, but listening to you makes me want to do something epic." Oh, I love it. Very cool. Awesome. You made my day. Thank you. And whenever I start a company or do a course or whatever it is, undertaking, it's kind of out there, but I feel like this will explain who I am. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff. And I'm looking over the cliff, and I throw a bunch of airplane parts out. And then I jump, and I try to assemble the airplane before I hit the ground. I know that's out there, but I love to challenge myself, which is why every course I teach, I try to teach in a different way, using props, etc. It'll be interesting to see how this whole programming course turns out as well. It'll be fun. I don't care if it doesn't do well. I'm going to be doing a million of them. Okay. Next up, Sam wrote, "How much planning do you do for predicting catalysts and events?" Yeah. So when it comes to investing for catalysts, a little bit less so today than I used to, because I used to work in the hedge fund industry. I would usually only invest in stocks on the long side, where there is an upcoming catalyst, meaning to make this stock move. Right. The worst thing you can do is go long a stock that is in between growth and value. It's an investment purgatory and doesn't move at all. So I would look a lot more so for catalysts when I worked in the hedge fund industry. Catalysts can be a movie studio releases a new movie, or a video game company releases a new video game, etc. Yeah, or actually all cyclical and industrial companies benefiting from the mother of all catalysts in 2008, which was the Beijing Olympics. Yeah, but for me now, I'm very, very long-term focused. And I start out by asking myself, in 5 years, are more people likely to use this product or fewer people? Then I start doing my research. So for example, with Coca-Cola, I have a prop here for my options course. With Coca-Cola, in 5 years, are more people going to be drinking Coca-Cola or fewer? I think fewer in the long run. 28% of Coca-Cola's revenue comes from Coca-Cola products. And I think that the next generation is going to look back upon us and say, "I can't believe you guys drank sugar water." And that's just like smoking. Not as bad, obviously. But I always look longer term. Okay. Next up, wrote, "I recently realized that money does not buy happiness, but money buys all the comforts in life and financial security, which definitely gives you happiness. I'm interested on your thoughts on this." Yeah. As long as you don't make money your master. So the Dalai Lama wrote this great book that everybody has to read or listen to on Audible, called The Art of Happiness. And what the Dalai Lama mentions in the book is that the problem with Western society is we sacrifice our health, our entire lives, in order to make money. And at the end of our lives, we sacrifice all of our money to maintain our health. And then we look back and we realized we never really lived to begin with. So I think money is important, but don't make it your idol, because you'll never be happy and you'll never have enough. How many yachts can you water ski behind? And a lot of billionaires, as I mentioned earlier in the call, they get into trouble with insider information or whatever lawsuits when they're already billionaires. And you think to yourself, "Oh my God, why would they do that? That's so stupid. Why would they break the law? They're already a billionaire." Well, maybe they've been chasing money their entire lives and breaking the law their entire lives, but this is the first time they got caught. And so I think it's really important to live below your means, right? Always live below your means. It's a much less stressful way to live as well. And when it comes to a career, and I know money is important, we all need it to survive. When it comes to a career, please don't just chase money. You know, at some point you got to say to yourself, enough is enough. And I want you, what I want you to do is I want you to actually chase your happiness. And don't give a damn what people think if you fail over and over again. And if you do what you love doing, I promise you what will happen in the very long run is you'll be incredibly successful, you'll be happier, and the money will come accidentally. It always does. If you chase money, you'll lose your dreams. If you chase your dreams, as long as you're willing to fail a bunch of times and not give a damn what people think, yeah, something wonderful happens. Your dreams do come true, and the money follows accidentally. It always does. How'd you like that pan in for effect? Yeah. I'll show you how I do it. So I use Wirecast, which is a product that I use for this broadcasting. And so what you can do is you can select different transitions, cut, smooth, etc. Kind of like in PowerPoint, when you're using PowerPoint. For example, I can use a stinger here. That's a stinger. That's kind of cool, eh? It's like the old Batman shows. Or what I can do is I can zoom in or zoom out. So let me try that. I'll do smooth transition here. Okay. There you zoom in. Yeah. It's like in the Barbara Walters show when she, in post-edit, they zoom into someone's face as they're crying when they answer a question about their childhood. All right, let me do a stinger transition. All right. Oh, Eileen, how are you? Eileen Deo Gracias. She graduated from my MBA program a couple years ago. Great to see you. Eileen's last name is Deo Gracias, which is Spanish for thank God. What a beautiful last name. I love that last name. Great to see you. And Eileen actually came out for graduation here in December. I got to meet her in person, which was great. I also met her when I went to Atlanta back last summer, where I bought this shirt here. Because I was using Coca-Cola for one of my courses as a case study. And actually, Eileen's priest. Eileen grew up in the Philippines. She now lives in Atlanta, and she's very successful with her own healthcare company. But Eileen's priest that she grew up with, or her friend, became a priest. And he's actually a priest at my church now called Our Lady of Angels. And I met him a couple times, super nice guy. And that's actually... you mentioning that kind of brought me back to the church more so. So thank you for that. God bless you. The Lord works in mysterious ways. With COVID, I didn't go to church for about a year and a half or 2 years. And I try to do it online, but it's not the same thing. But thank you for bringing me back. Appreciate it. And it's so great to see you. So great to see you. Okay, next up, the Berlin, who's in this year's MBA program, said, Chris, what happens if you hear insider trading in a tapped wire call, but you don't spread word or execute on the trade or go to companies? Do you still get in trouble? So I'm not a lawyer, but I've worked at hedge funds in the past where I've heard things, and what I've done is I've told my boss and the compliance director, and we put that stock on the restricted list, meaning nobody can transact in it for a certain amount of time, usually until the company reports earnings, at least. So I think it's always safer, especially if you work in finance, to tell your boss. Okay, and it'll be put on the restricted list, which will keep you out of trouble. Yeah. And obviously don't trade. Okay, Michelle, how are you? Michelle's in my MBA program. She also graduated from Columbia MBA school like I did, but many years after I did. She's much younger and smarter. So Michelle wrote, and Michelle used to work at Lockheed Martin as well. And I think you worked for NASA for a while as well. So you understand SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, projects, etc. So Michelle wrote, Russia also is a top export of lithium and other metals that go into batteries for EV technology. I didn't know that. Eesh. Brutal. Yeah, Russia has massive natural resources. It's a lot like Canada. Yeah. I didn't know that. Interesting. And speaking of EV technology for batteries for cars, so Michelle is an expert also in the automotive market and automotive automotive Internet of Things devices. She used to work at Mercedes as well. It's good to see you. Okay. Next up, Keith wrote, thanks for being my MBA mentor. My pleasure. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. What's your opinion on private tertiary education for children aged 12 to 18? Is it worth an investment? So my kids go to public schools. We have great public schools, and I didn't want them to kind of be sheltered and, have this different state of reality. They're older now. And by the way, I got to go there, man. If you guys have kids that are 12 years or younger, please turn me off and go spend time with them, because statistically, by the time your child is 12 years old, you've already spent 90% of the time you'll ever spend with them. But I'm a big believer in public schools, unless you live in an area where the public school system is just terrible. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Pro, for that comment. Okay. Next up, I've got who wrote, if I'm starting a technology company, which, as you know, by all means, has the potential to scale significantly based on product market fit, do you recommend I get it done through LegalZoom or through a law firm? Yeah. I would say that if you don't have a huge budget, definitely use LegalZoom. Yeah. So for my companies, I use LegalZoom. It's just as good. I used to work with high-priced lawyers, and I remember whenever I would join a company, I would pay a lawyer $7,000 to read over the documentation before I signed it. I'm glad I did that. But in hindsight, we didn't have LegalZoom back then. Jasper, how are you? Jasper is from Europe. He graduated my MBA program last year. He's a big fan of Kiss. Every time I see him, he's got the Kiss T-shirt on. And Kiss, the rock and roll band, by the way. So the founder of Kiss, one of the founders, is from Israel, and the S in Kiss is an L in Hebrew, or a lamed, and so the name of the band is actually Kill. Yeah, he's a big Kiss fan. Good to see you, man. And Jasper also is creating a company that is going to help you buy and sell Pokemon cards. Yeah. So Jasper, hi Chris, hope you're well. Likewise, good to see you. You wrote, things are going great here. Awesome. I want to thank you again for your amazing mentorship during the 2020 and 21 MBA. My pleasure. I miss you, man. And so Jasper, what he did was he went to an interview. And on the back of his resume, he created a one-page template, an overview of something, right? Something to impress the interviewer. And it was so amazing. Yes, he got the job. But it was so amazing that they asked him, where'd you get this from? Like, they didn't think he did it. Yeah, good to see you did. Okay. And next up, Roshni wrote, hi, Chris. In your MBA course, which was recorded in 2015, the one on Udemy, the 7.5-hour one, you predicted Microsoft's share, which was then trading at 50, wouldn't really grow much into a big company. What do you feel about it now? Yeah. So back then, I was thinking from a relative perspective. So from a hedge fund perspective, I like to be long growth stocks, and I like to short stocks that usually have lower betas. It's just my style. I would have also shorted Oracle, SAP as well, the big three uglies in software. Yeah. In terms of Microsoft now, I got to tell you, I'm really, really impressed with Satya Nadella. I think he's done a superb job, and it makes sense why Jeff Bezos even asked Andy Jassy to be the head of Amazon now. So Andy Jassy created Amazon Web Services. Makes sense that he runs Amazon. With Satya Nadella, he created Microsoft's cloud division, Azure. And that's good reason for him to run the company. The future is cloud. So I'm very impressed with him. He's probably one of my favorite CEOs. He's great. Hell of a lot better than Steve Ballmer was, who was a bully. Yeah. And I remember once, so Steve Ballmer was the old CEO of Microsoft before the board let him go. I'll never forget this. Okay, so every year I used to go to Microsoft's headquarters. And it was for the yearly analyst event for hedge funds or mutual funds, whatever. And I got to meet with Bill Gates a number of times there, had lunch, so it was great. But one year I went there, I think it was 2000, 2005. And I was there, and I was sitting watching Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer present. And there's 500 people in the audience. And I was front row center. And it was 1 p.m. Pacific time. 1 p.m. is 4 p.m. Pacific time is 4 p.m. New York time. And I had 3 of my companies reporting earnings. So I was very quietly updating my models. At the time, I was updating Citrix, ticker CTXS, great company based in Fort Lauderdale, which is getting acquired by private equity companies now. And so I'm updating my model really quietly, right? Because I wanted to know what to do with the stock after hours. And Steve Ballmer is presenting. And he's presenting. He's got this big, confident voice. And then I'm updating my model very quietly. And then he walked close to where I was. And then he stopped talking. And I was like, oh my God, what's he doing? So I looked up, and he was staring at me like this for like 30 seconds. And so I stared back. And after a while, I got scared. So I looked away. And then he continued. But he was a bully the way he ran the company. And everybody knows that. So Satya Nadella is a great replacement. Yeah. All right. Next up, Cruncher wrote, with all the finger pointing between the White House and the oil industry, how does the average person figure out if the Biden energy policies from day one are the cause of the oil industry, or the oil industry is the cause? Yeah, for higher gas prices. I see. Yeah. No, I think it's geopolitical right now that's causing prices to go up. Obviously Russia's disgusting invasion of Ukraine. I don't think it really has much to do with oil energy policy. But if there's ever going to be a point where the pipeline between Canada and the United States does get approved, it's now, because of surging gas prices. Yeah. Okay. And there's so many derivative events that are going to occur because of this invasion of Ukraine. Like, a lot of people are going to make a fortune investing in defense stocks. And I remember after 9/11 as well, we all bought defense stocks. I think that sector is going to do incredibly well. I do. So maybe buy an ETF of defense-related stocks if you don't want to roll up your sleeves and do the research. Yeah. Okay. Cold War Part 2 started 2 weeks ago. All right. Next up, I've got Satoshi shorts. I like it. I know where that comes from too, Bitcoin, yeah. I'm struggling with coming up with a 5-year prediction for my startup, as I don't have enough experience in finance. I've got 12 months cash flow done, and it's good, but I can't say the same about the 5-year cash flow. Yeah. And I don't see a question there, but you're probably asking, what should you do? Yeah. Okay, a couple ways to answer this question is, as with all questions I answer generically to apply to everybody. Let's say you started a company, and you wrote a business plan, you did your research on it. 2 years into the business plan, you're running the company. At the 2-year point, I want you to ask yourself this one question. Step back and ask yourself this. Had I known about all the issues and challenges that there are in this company, had I known about that 2 years ago before I started the company, would I still have started the company or not? And if the answer is no, shut it down. I know it's hard, because starting a company, it's an emotional thing. It's like one of your children for a lot of people. But you got to be unemotional in business always. It's kind of like whenever I buy a stock and my students buy stocks, I tell them, write a full research report first, and I give you all the tools to do it. I never tell you what to buy. I give you all the tools. So if you write that research report on the company and you're excited and you buy the stock, and then 2 years later, the stock is going down a lot and you're like, oh my God, I want to panic sell. Well, what I want you to do is I want you to go back to read that research report on why you bought the stock in the first place. And ask yourself, had I known about these risks 2 years ago that is causing the stock to go down today? Had I known about these risks 2 years ago, would I have still bought the stock? And if the answer is no, then sell it. If the answer is yes, then buy more as long as it's not more than 5% of your liquid net worth. And so you got to be unemotional in business. And Elon Musk is very unemotional as well, which is one of the many reasons he's so successful. In fact, in March of 2020, when everybody was selling stocks, he backed up the truck and bought a ton of Tesla when the VIX was above 80. And VIX above 80 means a lot of fear in the marketplace. And then when everyone was bullish on the markets last fall, he sold a lot of stock, and his brother did as well. And by the way, I think he's innocent until proven guilty with respect to those SEC allegations. Yeah. So you got to be unemotional always in business. Always, always, always. Now, if your question is, how do you raise capital for your next round because of the high burn rate? Then what I recommend doing, if you want, sign up for my MBA program. And if you sign up for my silver program, I could coach you one-on-one, or actually as part of a small group setting every Thursday at 10 a.m. over Zoom. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Next up, JTF. Is my sound working? Sorry for swearing. Oh, sorry. Okay. My screen froze for a second there. I got worried. Hold on a second. See if we're okay here. Okay. Sorry for swearing. Okay. But with masterclass, like a lot of these people that are teaching them, like they don't really script it. They're kind of just sitting there talking about, I don't know, just things in general. And so I find that there's not as much actionable stuff to take away from those courses, although they're very well produced and very inspiring as well. And what impresses me most about masterclasses is not just the production quality, but it's the quality of the articulation of the message. And Maya Angelou once said, people might not remember what you said, but they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And so these people can teach based on their personalities, but again, there's not actionable stuff to follow up with. So I'm not a huge fan. All right. Okay. And Om wrote, every time I listen to you, I feel I've become multiple times smarter than my previous self. Oh, thank you. And you wrote, thanks a lot for coming on here every Thursday to answer our questions. It's like getting a world-class education. Thank you. God bless you for that. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. This wouldn't be possible without all of you showing up. Thank you. 175 weeks. Crazy. This is week 175. Yeah. And I'm never going to stop doing this. Okay, we don't have much time left. I'm going to have to wrap up the call soon. Again, if you're a member of the Silver MBA program, which you can learn more about at my website, harounventures.com. If you go to the first lecture, you can click for the YouTube link for the call that starts at 10 a.m. And then we're going to do Zoom as well, in case you want me to help you with anything you want me to help you with. Yeah. And there's going to be a bunch of questions I won't have time to answer here. So if you're silver, just copy them and ask me in the next call. If you're gold and platinum, ask me during our 2-hour call that starts at 11:20 today. And if not, just copy them for next week. Thanks. All right, next up, 1030 wrote, I'm only 16 and I learned so much from you. Thank you. I will surely buy your courses when I grow up. Thank you. Please tell my kids that, so they'll understand what I'm doing. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks. When I was 16, I had my own lawn care company. I remember that. Yeah. It was fun. And Amon wrote, sir, I love your channel. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. God bless you. Okay, next up we got Fred Mendoza. Fred graduated last year from the MBA program. He's based in Baltimore. He works in the healthcare industry. He met Dr. Fauci once. I had to mention that. It's kind of cool. He's also an expert in the real estate investment sector. So Fred wrote here, hey, everybody. Sorry I could not come to the alumni call. Oh, that's right. Last Friday we had an alumni call. You wrote, I was at the movies watching The Batman. Dude, I heard it's getting great reviews. Like they broke even on that damn thing in like a week. And for older people like me, we look at Robert Pattinson and we think, what the hell? Why would this guy be Batman? It doesn't make sense. Like, who is this guy? Well, the younger generation grew up with him, watching the Twilight Saga. Yeah. So apparently he does a great job. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right, next up, British Empire wrote, hey man, I love your Udemy videos, especially the crypto one. I learned a lot. I love, and I love your voice too. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks. I sound tired sometimes. In fact, it was 2 years ago. I had a complaint from 2 students, and 2 data points make a trend, that I sounded tired. And so what I did was I got rid of my chair in my office. I think it was 2 years ago because of that. So now I don't sit all day long, and I have a treadmill here under my desk, so I get a lot of my steps in here when I'm not teaching live as well. Yeah. And this is my Zoom in transition. How you doing? All right. Okay, and I got to wrap up this call in a minute, guys. All right, next up, Roshni wrote, do you think the Ukraine could butt itself back? If yes, where would it get the funds from? Okay. Oh, but I think you meant to push Y instead of T for but. Do you think they can buy themselves back, and where they get the funds from? Will investors still be interested? Yeah. In the long run, yes, investors will be interested. For now, it's going to be government support. So the United States, as part of the budget they just signed yesterday, they're going to send the Ukraine over $13 billion. Yeah. And they're rerouting some. The United States government is rerouting some COVID-related stimulus plans to the Ukraine because COVID is not as bad as it was before. So they're putting money in different locations now. Yeah. In the long run. Yeah. Okay. Next up, and I don't pretend to be an expert on the Ukraine when it comes to investing in stocks or companies there at all. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Tomer, and if I mispronounce anyone's name, please let me know. Thank you. Chris, I have a business I already started. It looks very new, and I'll create a new marketplace, but I'm afraid that it will be limited when it will be published. And maybe my management style is not sophisticated to run the business, which I believe that if it is managed poorly, it will be $1 billion. If it is not managed poorly, I think you meant it will be $1 billion company. Yeah. So there's a lot of comments there. So here's what I would say. Okay, so sometimes we realize that we're not skilled in a certain area and we can't do it all alone, can't do it ourselves. And so we have to find, somebody that completes the puzzle, so to speak. So with Steve Jobs, God bless him, he wasn't a techie at all. He was a brilliant marketing person and salesperson. And so he found his Wozniak to complete his yin-yang, so to speak. Steve Wozniak is a great humanitarian, good guy, and he's a techie as well. He understands tech. So maybe you need to find your Woz as well. And if that's the nature of your question, let me know. We can go down that path as well in terms of how to network to find somebody to be your co-partner in your company. Yeah, or somebody to give equity to that is a techie or, I don't know, fills a gap that you think you lack. Yeah, but I guarantee you, if you think you lack, it's up here. Yeah, meaning you are your own biggest enemy. Whether or not you think you can do it, you're right. Yeah. All right. All right. Next up, Roy. And I always smile when I see your name because I think of Kendall Roy from the show Succession. Great show. Oh, guys, the best show on TV right now is called Super Pumped. It's about Uber. Oh my God, it's so good. They've just done 2 episodes so far. Kyle Chandler plays the role of Bill Gurley, who's a venture capitalist from Benchmark. We used to work in the same building. I met Bill before. It's amazing. It's called Super Pumped. It's about Uber. It's amazing. You trust me, you will love it. Just watch it. It's lights out, the best show on television right now since Bobby Axelrod left Billions. Okay. All right, and I think we're gonna end it here, guys. I see there's a bunch more questions. I've got to get ready for the 10 a.m. With my silver students. So for those of you in the Silver MBA program, what you got to do is just go to the first lecture in the curriculum. Okay, go to the first lecture in the curriculum, and if you want to learn more about the Silver MBA, just go to my website, harounventures.com. And then just click here on Haroun MBA degree. And then what you can do is you can sign up if you want to enroll. And earlier today, I did promise one student who asked for a discount, I promised that student that I'll give him a 25% discount, meaning I'll sell it for 25% off $999, which is $749. And I'll give it to anybody else as well, but that only lasts until the end of tomorrow. So just email support@harounventures.com if you're interested. There's a 30-day, 100% money back guarantee. But if you sign up, and for those of you that have already signed up, if you go down to the curriculum, let's see here, and here we go. If you go down to the curriculum, you click this lecture here, and this will tell you how to access the weekly YouTube call I do. And we also do Zoom during that. And it's every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It lasts for an hour. Yeah. Okay, great. Cool. All right. So I want to thank you all for your time. This has been a fun week. Week 175. I can't believe it. We've got a new backdrop here. We're trying different things as well. We're actually turning this into an interview studio as well. And so our second detailed interview will be released within the next week. I interviewed this guy named Varun Puri, a really smart guy. He's from India originally. He came to the United States and he worked directly for Sergey Brin at Alphabet on special projects. And so I'll be releasing a video about him soon. It's about his amazing startup. It's an AI startup called Udly.ai. He's raised over $1 million. And he's going to share some of his advice to all of you on how to start a company, which should be fun. Okay, that's my alarm. I better go. All right, guys, have a great weekend. Please click like, subscribe, etc. If this was helpful. And I'll see you next week and every single week starting at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you and God bless.